Hi, it's Casey with Snake River Seeds. We're here to talk about the isolation stuff this month for Seed Savers Club. So you guys have that chart that we sent you in the newsletter that has a link to it. It tells you the crop, and then it tells you its botanical name, its genus and species, which we talked about already in these videos. And then it tells you whether it's a selfer or an outcrosser, whether it's insects, wind, or self-pollinating, which we've already talked about what that all means. Now we want to talk about the next column on that chart, which is the isolation distances that you need. So you might notice on that chart that there's big differences between whether something needs to be 10 feet apart from some other thing that's the same genus and species in order to prevent cross-pollination, or it needs to be like a mile apart based on, and so what that means is the ones that are insect pollinated are bigger distances, and the ones that are self-pollinating are smaller distances. And then the ones that are wind pollinating, it might list on that chart that they need to be really far away, but I want to point out that many of you are in a city or in a backyard or doing this on a smaller scale, and I just want to look around here and notice all of these barriers that we might have to wind blowing something from one place to another. I mean, when they say you need a mile in between corn varieties or something like that, that's like, you might need a mile because corn pollen is going to travel, like if you're in Nebraska and it's flat as a pancake and there's corn for miles and miles and miles, yeah, it makes sense that the wind could carry corn pollen for a long way. But here in a city, the wind is not really going to carry our pollen very far from one place to another because we've got walls and buildings and fences and trees and all this stuff. So I would generally reduce the isolation distance that you need for your wind pollinated crops. Just give yourself a little more space between them and you'll probably be fine as a home seed saver. So I wanted to just mention a couple of other ways that you can isolate your crops for seed production. So the most easy thing to do is just to plant one variety from a certain genus and species. If it's an outcrosser, if it's an insect or wind pollinated, if you just pick one and let it go to seed, then that's easy. Or if you're going to pick more than one, if it's something like basil and you want to grow 3 different kinds of basil because you love basil, but you want to save seed off of, say, Genovese, then you could just grow Genovese and Thai and whatever, red Reuben or whatever you want to grow, and you could just keep cutting the flowers off of the Thai and the red Reuben and just let the Genovese flower so that you're not worrying about whether or not the flowers are flowering at the same time and cross-pollinating that way. And then we'll talk about some other ideas in the next video. This is fairly long so far, so we'll leave it there and come back to it in a second.